all. Thank you for being here and being on time. I'm Lindsay. I teach ceramics here. I know it's a busy time of year. Lots of seats are not filled, but I wanted to thank you all for coming. This is the last of our Friday lecture series. And I wanted to thank the Speakers Committee for the funding necessary for this lecture. So I'm really excited to have my friend and rock star colleague, Andy Casto, here with us. He's very accomplished, so his bio is rather long. He lives and works in Iowa City, where he's an assistant professor and program head of ceramics at the University of Iowa. He was the 2011 MJD Fellow at the Archie Bray Foundation for Ceramic Art in Montana, and has exhibited work internationally. This list is too long to mention here. He was also the recipient of a 2015 Emerging Artist Award from INSECA, and was a finalist for the 2017 Young Masters Graham Ceramics Prize with Cynthia Corbet Gallery in London. He has exhibited in over 70 group shows with solo exhibits in Milan and Miami and Portland, Oregon. And he currently has a solo exhibit opening at Duane Reade Gallery tomorrow from 5 to 8 is the reception. So please join me in welcoming
Thanks so much, Lindsay. Can you all hear me okay? Is it all right, folks in the back? Yeah. Also, just since I'm in a new place, are folks generally ceramics familiar in the room or not at all? I'm trying to decide like how in detail I should get with explanations. You want details? Okay. So thanks so much, Lindsay, for the kind introduction, and thanks everybody for being here today. Your campus is beautiful, and I wonder also, are you all affiliated with the dictionary, Webster's, or no? No?
Nobody ever asked that.
Well, you know, it's like kind of a nice asset, you know, you have a dictionary at the university. Missed opportunity. Okay, anyway, I'll speak some about my work today and how I got to where I am at Iowa, what I make, and just a little bit about what goes into the process. And then there'll be time for questions at the end also. So please feel free to ask things that you'd like to know. I try to view what I do in the studio and in my work with a sense of gratitude. Not a lot of folks get to do what they like in this world today, or to be artists or to teach at really great universities. So I feel like even when I'm in frustrating faculty meetings, it's really important to remember that it's a great privilege to get to do this. And I try really to think about how to share that privilege with students and other people around me. So a lot of what I'll do in this conversation is talk back and forth between my work and the University of Iowa. A lot of shameless plugs here. I'm obviously representing the school and hoping to help you know about us also. So we try really hard to foster a sense of community that recognizes what we have. And I guess I think that even in hard moments, it's my job to work on behalf of positive change for the people around me. So I came to my current job in 2016. This is how our building looked when I interviewed. It was brand new when I started, which again, is a pretty awesome thing to walk into, although I can say that walking into your ceramic studio here was really, really nice in terms of the history that's present. And often folks walk into our schools and talk about how clean it is, but I miss that kind of tangible evidence of creative work and ingenuity. So what you have is
the
really
nicest thing
special.
anybody's ever said.
So, and I appreciate the place where I work, especially because before it I had a number of jobs in places that looked like this. And I taught at a small college, also in Iowa, and also at Kansas State University prior to Iowa. And I also try to talk about Kansas when I do lectures like this to sort of give a sense of that it's not been the easiest road for me a lot of the time. The work I make really tries to reflect this idea that it's my job to see these things with a sense of optimism. This is a tiny hill that I paid a lot of money for because when I moved to Kansas, I was maliciously sold a house that had a bad septic system. And I don't know if anybody's ever replaced one of those before, but it's a small fortune. And so I really learned then that I needed to kind of like roll with things, right? And ceramics is a medium. I really think there are no masters. Like, we still blow things up, both Lindsay and I, right? So to me, this is a great practice for life in the sense that you get super used to things not going the way you intend. And I moved to Iowa City after Kansas because I really love that environment. Sometimes Greta Thunberg shows up, or Kamasi Washington, and there's quotes on the sidewalk. It's a beautiful sort of home for creativity in the Midwest. So I think of myself often as a representative for this place. And here's some shots of the school, the studio, what we do there, and even some valued guests that come by from time to time. So
Do you have an MFA program?
we do have an MFA program, yes. And if anybody's interested, I'm happy to talk to you about that. It's fully funded, 3-year program, 8 studio areas, and a nice stipend, money for travel. It's a pretty good deal to get. So please let me know if I can talk more about that. So really what I'm trying to do in the studio is make work that for me attempts to reinterpret kind of my perception of negative forces and become a way to think about these experiences as like moments of presence that help me focus on being in my own body on a daily basis. For me, ceramics was a refuge. I am from a fairly sheltered suburban Ohio background. This is me learning to throw at a wheel just like the ones you guys have in the studio in 1997. And you know, folks around me growing up still, most of them still live in the town I grew up in. Most of them work for the city in some way, and they think that it's very weird that I left to do this ceramics thing, right? Somehow, you know, I've sort of find myself in this situation where I get to teach in this great university and have a really nice studio, and I try to like talk about that with students because I know I have a bit of confirmation bias, but I believe that these things are possible, and so much in the world wants to tell you that it's not. So just for like absolute proof, if I can go from that to that, then surely other folks can make good progress in their life as well. I believe that's sophomore year of college, perhaps. And so again, like I'm trying to find purpose in the studio and to kind of acknowledge the messiness that is life often in the, you know, directly through the work. This is some work that was at Wayne Reed's actually a couple of years ago, but I really think that like how we navigate the challenges that show up in our life determines who we are, and I want the work to talk about that. So the philosopher Zygmunt Bauman talks about the contemporary condition as a kind of liquid modernity, in the sense that we never really can get a foothold because time and society and culture moves so fast. So we are perpetually feeling out of touch or grasping for you know, something to hold on to. I think that really hits home for me. For artists, you know, and particularly ceramic artists, I think this is especially prevalent in terms of how we work in the studio, because even our sort of most basic moves in the studio are predictions of something that's going to happen 3 to 4 steps ahead in the process. So the work is realized, you know, after it is dried, fired a number of times, shipped, finally reaches a gallery space, and then we get to see what it really looks like, right? Like, oh, to be a musician and just play a thing and have it be out in the world. It's a strange place to find yourself in. So within that unpredictability, I think the only thing that we really is sound. The only thing we can really do is take refuge in this sense of kind of not grasping onto things. I also like this quote from Brian Eno that talks about art being a rehearsal for the inapplicability and failure of our attempt to rationalize the world. For me, this has been super real, as I've said. When I graduated undergrad, I had this dream of being a self-sufficient studio artist, and I bought this house with my wife, and we built kilns and worked full-time jobs, her as an art teacher and me as an auto body insurance claims adjuster. I kid you not, that is a car that was driven into a water treatment facility plant, septic pool by a drunk driver. So, and he had to swim out.
Yes, let's just buy that one. That'll
Yeah. So these are the kilns we were building at that time, and we did this for about 4 years and ultimately realized that we were never going to be able to quit our jobs. So what we did at that time was leave to go to graduate school, and I wound up at the University of Iowa, where I happen to teach now, in another sort of incarnation, which is a strange place to find myself in sometimes, but one I'm super grateful for also. So this is my teacher, Buddy McBride, who passed away in 2020. And that's me in grad school. And I also, again, because I know there's a lot of students in the room, I try to show just the progression of what my work looked like during this time. I'm going to roll through about 5 images that happened over the course of 3 years. So when I got to school, I was making work that looked like this. And then this thing happened. Again, this question of what do you do when things don't go the way you plan? 2008, massive flood, whole studio destroyed, and I was sort of in this place of thinking I had gone to grad school to be a potter, and all of a sudden there was no place to be a potter, and I had to really wrestle with what you do. Do you leave? Do you sort of buckle down? Do you try to make a new life? Do you figure it out? And I really latched on to what happened at Iowa in that moment. We all, that whole community came together to sandbag the river, and I realized that in these moments, what you do and everything falls apart is actually more important than what you try to do when you're sort of making things happen, right? To me, that sense of picking things back up is really where humanity shows up. Thus became this reevaluation of my work. So the pots got more sculptural and gestural. By the next year, they were barely pots, and then they were not pots at all. And again, this kind of willingness to work with what I've got on hand. I was a really bad slip caster. I don't know if you know how this works in ceramics, but we make a deflocculated mixture, basically a homogeneous clay slurry that gets poured into plaster molds and dries out. I had never worked with it before and had no one to teach me about how to reclaim this, how to reuse it. But if you treat casting slip the same way you would treat clay and put it in a big bucket and just gradually add water to it, what you get is Greek yogurt, not good old casting slip again. And being a sort of broke grad student, I had to figure out, well, what will I do with this stuff? And this is the work that came out of me thinking, all right, I got to use this, and ultimately led me to a place that sort of got me the work that I make right now. So that's a kind of a long story of how I arrived at the body of work that I currently make. And for me, this was a really, I don't know how to say it, but super critical search. In a way, all through grad school, I was trying to find this thing I knew I didn't have what I needed. And as soon as this work showed up, I did know that I had found it. That realization also matched up with opportunities. So the next year, I got invited to be a long-term resident at Archie Gray, which is where I met Lindsay. How about that?
I thought you might show the mustache picture.
Well, there is, Kenyon's got a mustache. I believe this photo, no mustaches except Kenyon. The next one, everybody's got a mustache. I only have this one. In any case, this is a super sort of prestigious and exciting place to be. It's a defunct brick factory with huge kilns that you can walk in. And if you're ever in Helena, Montana, you should stop by. You can just go and walk around. It's open to the public. And so I really, when I was there, got to hone in on this way of working. And ultimately, what I'm doing is making parts that are, sort of derived from things that I've experienced or sort of semi, iconic moments or objects that have meant something to me. And then combining them with this casting slip slurry to make assemblages that are a bit unpredictable, a bit unwieldy, and sort of resolve themselves as I work. When I think about this, I think about it as an organic design strategy. So I am less like an engineer and more like a gardener when I'm working in the studio. I try to kind of cultivate conditions that allow things to happen. So the idea being, I might know loose parameters of how large something should be or a general color scheme. But otherwise, I'm invested in seeing how the work shows up on its own. And that's a much more fun process for me than setting out with a really specific goal. I look at things in nature that do this also. So whether that's coral reef or the way like ice and weather accumulates on structures. In the middle there is a repurposed, it's like highway concrete being turned into a coral reef farm, which I think is a particularly excellent metaphor. Or kudzu vine, which is bizarre and wild in the way that it covers things. There's more of the coral reef. Also, like these banyan trees are super interesting to me. I have a gallery in Miami, and anytime I'm there, I try to see some of these trees because they really feel a lot like my work in the sense that vines just grow all over them and cover the whole tree. It's been great to also like be able to take this work around. So I end up, as Lindsay said, like traveling for exhibitions and making really great friends in all of these places. So for me, like, you know, I feel like I took a leap into a type of a space of not knowing things and was able to kind of then get to have this much more exciting life than the insurance claims adjuster that I was originally. So sorry if anybody does that. It's respectable work. It's needed. It just wasn't for me. So here's a little bit of what this material looks like when I make it. This is a giant trash can full of this casting slip that I now make thick on purpose. And it's pretty amazing in terms of just being able to kind of capture gravity and moments in the studio. So this is a more recent shot of me working and how it ends up looking in the process. I also try to, I think this piece is actually the one that was on the flyer that you made for this talk. So I also try to use discarded remnants of other people's work as well when I can. So I think about this a little bit like the way we might sample things in music and repurpose an element from an earlier song in a current one. I'll take these objects out of the reclaim bin in the studio and then build with them in my own work as a way to say, like, I'm of this place and these people, and therefore it is present in the work that I'm making. So that's the finished piece that I was working on there in the studio. Also, the work is really influenced by, you know, places I've been. Before I was an artist, I was on an off-campus trip as an undergrad to Barcelona and saw Sagrada Familia and totally fell in love with this like molten-looking surface. And a few years later, I mean, well, it was actually, I don't know, 15 years later when I really started making this work, it dawned on me that I had first become attracted to surfaces like this on that trip. So I think often these things are like deep in us, right? Like you get back to the thing that you're actually motivated by. And speaking of my hard time in Kansas, these are some of my fabulous students there. And so, you know, one of the things that kept me going was the humor of these guys. They were obsessed with making ceramic food and scanning chicken wings and then 3D printing them, and that's a ceramic taco. So I started making little elements of, like the chicken wing I still use as a shape in my work. Often I'm kind of recreating these things, or that animal as well has shown up from time to time. I resolved this work in a surface that is gold luster, and ceramic artists will probably be familiar with this, but it's a very thin layer of actual gold that goes on the work. It comes in a solution that burns away in the kiln, leaving just the gold on the work. I also think it's good to talk about, like, from a material standpoint, a lot of what we do in ceramics is actually math and chemistry. This is the only science I really know. I last took chemistry in 1994. But I teach folks how to do this, and we're always experimenting in the studio, making new glazes. I feel really lucky that I get to like watch these experiments happen, and then use some of that knowledge in my own work in the studio. Again, I started as a potter, right? And so I still make work that way sometimes, but it's rarely for actual use or for making, you know, things to be off of. I think of these things as iconic in terms of ceramics and just sort of the building blocks of how we start, the same way a painter works on canvas initially for those folks. Hurry, hurry. Almost done. minutes outside. I thought someone had a question. So, having started in that place, I do often return to vessels now, just in like a symbolic way, because I find that they're important to me. For a long time, I tried to not be a potter on purpose, and now I feel like I can really embrace thinking that way again with a fresh perspective. I do work mostly with galleries, and it's been, well, primarily in New York, Miami, and Paris now that the work gets shown, which again I feel super lucky to get to do. And I'm really thinking now, I think as I get, I don't know, older and more kind of set in my weird ways about how I can do projects that I'm specifically interested in. I think one of the challenges for artists as you get further along in life is you do get into modes of working that feel really routine and can get sort of like, I don't know, formulaic, and that can be a struggle. So that means I'm like actively looking for creative partnerships, and just this year I had a really amazing thing happen with these two folks. So on the left is Cole Wilson, and on the right is Ingrid Chen, who's Cole's gallerist. Ing runs a gallery in Brookline, Massachusetts, and Cole is a conceptual artist. That work on the right is images of tattoos that Cole gave themselves with their own blood. In the image of, they're actually sort of sourced from tattoos found on an ancient mummified human. And then they documented these pictures, and if you tattoo yourself with your own blood, it eventually just disappears. So I thought this work was fascinating. And another project that Cole was working on was this thing called the National Debt Project. These are Cole's early sketches and models. They invited me to make 15 golden banks for them. Cole has been saving their loose change and sending it to pay off the national debt for 15 years as a way to point out how ridiculous the national debt is. And I think Cole to date has paid down something like, I don't know, $3,000 and spent about $12,000 in postage. You know, there's an inherent futility in this idea of the work. But this is the work that we ended up making together. So rarely do I get to do a thing like this, but it was super fun to have someone say, what I need is 15 objects about this big. They need to have an opening, but they can't actually work. And this is what we came up with together. On the walls are all of Cole's postage receipts from the post office. So that was this fall in Massachusetts. And you know, again, I'm super lucky to have an awesome place to work. This is a couple years ago now, but many of our crew in ceramics at the University of Iowa, we get to teach people how to build their own kilns, do all sorts of travel, and like this is a program that has a ton of legacy. We've been doing ceramics at Iowa since the 1950s, so even in Iowa City, there are still people around that have been through the program, and it's a really lovely family to be a part of. I also really think it's important, again, to try and channel the opportunities that I get to students. So occasionally something amazing happens, and this is one of our third-year MFAs, Javier Espinosa-Lomax, who came to us from Mexico. Javier is trained as a traditional Talavera artisan. If you don't know about Talavera, you should check it out. It is a way of using brushwork that is sort of a synthesis of Spanish and Chinese techniques that occurred during the colonial period of Mexico in the 1600s. Because if you think about it, if you're trying to get around the world by boat, you run right into Mexico no matter what direction you go. Pueblo is it's near Mexico City, but it's right where all this was happening. So this style kind of emerges. It's one part blue and white Chinese history, one part Italian, Spanish brushwork. And it gets synthesized in this really fascinating way. So Javier is trained in this way of working, still makes contemporary objects, but right away at Iowa started asking about how he could, sort of get grant money, find opportunities to work with folks from Mexico. What I didn't know was the people that make Talavera are typically seen as laborers by corporate factories. So there are galleries and studios that are run by businesses that pay artisans who work their whole lives very, very low wages to make the work. So Javier found a way to get the school to pay for him to go back to Mexico and create workshops for these folks to get to do whatever they wanted, which was the first time they'd ever done that. And that was so like, I mean, it was kind of a dream of a funding project. Everybody wanted to throw money at it, which was awesome. And we ended up getting enough to bring them here to Iowa, to us. And it was the first time that our guests, Enrique and Consuelo, had actually been on an airplane or left Mexico. And they got to make this work in front of the whole community. We developed an Iowa version of the Talavera Blaze, and had just a really fascinating 3-day event. Another recent sort of exciting teaching thing that I want to talk about briefly is international travel that I get to do with students. So these folks, Paolo Torelli and Lorianne Touchette, are friends that run a residency center in Rome. And actually I met them at Archie Bray when I met Lindsay. And through knowing them, I was able to create an off-campus program called the University of Iowa European Ceramics Studio course. And 2 years ago, we went with 17 students to make Maiolica work in Rome. Again, a lot of these folks had like never been, maybe they've been to Illinois, but certainly not Italy. And so we got to sort of do one half art history, one half studio for 3 weeks, and make things collectively in this space. So I also really am always hopeful that I can like show off the work of, again, the rest of the grad students at Iowa, who are really fabulous artists, and this is some of the things that is being made in the studio these days. One thing I would also say is that, I don't know if this feels this way or resonates with people here, but I was raised in a ceramics world that really valued hard work to the point of exhaustion. I was told that I was supposed to be the first person into the studio in the morning and the last one to leave at the end of the day. And I don't think we can really afford to be that way in 2025. I think it's our job to think about self-care and community. And so I've really tried to pivot in my teaching and in curating the grad group at Iowa to a sort of community-first model rather than thinking specifically about just the quality of work. That has ended up being really good when I have found, focus on choosing students based on what they bring to the community. The work ends up taking care of itself. And I didn't really know that would happen. It was sort of a bit of a guess, but it's been really excellent to see. And at this point, I think 4 of our 7 grad students are international, so it's really just a fabulous dynamic environment. Close to the end here, and I want to invite you all to come to this show tomorrow night too, and to the workshop after this. This is some of the work in process and kind of being finished that I'll have Dwayne read tomorrow night. Happy to chat with folks, and I don't know anybody in this town other than Lindsay, so like please come and hang out. Be my friend for a night. And I think at this point I can take some questions if you have any. Yes.
What time is the gallery tomorrow?
4 to 7 p.m.
I said 5 to 9. Okay.
5 to 9 works.
5 to 8.
Just get there before 7.
Yeah, I also could be wrong. I'm pretty sure they said 4 to 7,
It's
but
probably online somewhere.
probably it is, yeah. Come at 6, you'll be totally golden. Yes?
Is your study abroad program open to other students at other colleges? Or
Yeah,
do
you could
partner
do
with
that.
them, or how do you?
I don't know how the money would work, but yes, for sure. And we're trying to do it every 3 years is the goal. So we're due to go next year, actually.
And I'm going to answer your question, Patty, because those of you in this room who are my students, the Create Our Own partnership is what we're trying to get going on here for next spring.
Amazing.
So that
You
was
should do
awesome
it.
to, well, we've applied.
Fabulous.
That was fun to see the pictures.
You have to apply to bring students over?
Short-term study abroad.
Or you mean you apply here to do it?
Yeah, correct.
And then it would be through credit through Webster.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can't say enough about those guys. I mean, Lorianne is so brilliant. Your brain will be so full of historical information that you can hardly stand it. And Paolo is like the perfect counterpoint. fabulous artist and really down to earth and easy to be around. So, what else would you like to know? Yes.
So when you had mentioned that you and your wife had built your own kilns,
Yeah.
have you ever like collected and processed your own clay?
I have. Yes. Are you interested in doing this?
I am, because I've tried to do that before, and it was a really long and tedious process because I don't know if I did it right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know that there's doing it wrong unless what you make has rocks in it or something, you know? I mean, really, it's a question of finding the clay, drying the clay out, grinding it grinding it, screening out any impurities, and then rehydrating it. It's not super hard. And one thing that I've found is that, I mean, there's clay all over the place, everywhere. And if you Google like old geological or geographical surveys of your area, you'll find information on this. Often there's sort of defunct brick factories from the 1920s or something where they mined that brick will still be easy to find, and you can just go and dig that clay. It's also the kind of thing where if there's a quarry or something nearby, you can usually talk to somebody. I mean, people love to help artists with weird projects I've found in my life. So like if you just walk in and say, hey, I'm an artist, is there any clay out there that I could just mess with? Some old person's gonna be, yeah, that sounds super fun. I'd love to like leave my desk for half an hour and show you this. I would recommend like looking. What's hardest actually is to find clay that goes to higher temperatures. So there's a lot of surface clay, earthenware type clay in the Midwest that's kind of yellowish, brownish in color, and it'll fire to maybe count 4, 1800, 1900 degrees, something like that. It can be a nice glaze, but to actually use it for anything more durable than that is tough. To find stoneware or sort of clays that would go hotter, you probably need some sort of data online to know where to look. It exists, but it's less common, or maybe deeper, hard to get to. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yes, Lindsay?
Can you talk a little bit about color in your work? So
Yeah.
about gold
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about how best to come at this question. I had a moment in my studio in grad school. I was making mostly atmospheric pots that were earth tones. And a really well-known potter, Linda Christensen, was visiting as a visiting artist, and she walked into my studio and I had all these sort of brown pots. But on the walls were like pictures of graffiti and like contemporary design objects, and all of it was like brightly colored. And she was like, I'm just curious why what's on your walls looks so different than what's on your tables. And I thought, oh, she's right. And that kind of began a long, I don't know, like experiment process. Right now, I really think about layers, and things go through all sorts of changes. So I'm usually using underglaze when I'm making things in the studio, and things will have a kind of specific color scheme. I usually want things that sort of reverberate or kind of bounce off each other. Like lavender looks really nice next to yellow, things like that, you know, I'm thinking about. But I fire these objects sometimes 4 or 5 times, and I don't know if you all know this, but like you don't have to only fire it once. Like you can keep firing things. Sometimes it goes badly, but you know, with the right situation, I mean, you can keep adding after each firing and create these really kind of lush, like color fields. And that's often what I'm looking for, is like a super deep surface where maybe on first glance it looks kind of, you might see the blue first, but as you get close to it, you might discover that there's actually some like red down inside in nooks and crannies and stuff. For me, the color is like a way to keep people at attention with the work. Like there's some terrible statistic that people spend like an average of 3 seconds on a work of art, you know, when they look at it. I'd like to like maybe get like 6 or 7 seconds out of somebody. So the more, you know, I can kind of like stretch out that space from observation to perception, the better I think the work is. I'd like to slow down that process, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that's often what I'm trying to do with color. Yes?
Back to your piece with the postage.
Yeah.
Why 15? Why 15?
She had been doing it for 15 years. She wanted one bank for every year. She also had like a volume, like a book of every year that was like, again, the receipts were on the wall, but there were like letters from like the president saying like, thank you for your generous contribution of 37 cents to the national debt. Like clearly like a form letter that just gets fired off to everybody, you know. Obama actually wrote Cole like 3 real letters, which was pretty cool, and those are in there too.
How did that project, like, how did they find you? Was it through?
Through a mutual friend, actually Linda, a mutual friend of ours. Cole had taught at Arkansas,
Okay.
and Linda told Cole to call me, and at first I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I started thinking, well, maybe it could be interesting, and then I met Cole, and Cole was super cool, and we just really clicked. And the crazy thing is, all 15 of those things are now in the corporate art collection of Fidelity Investments Corporation, which is, like, I don't know if they get it, but like,
Right.
it's really, like when that happened, I was like, really, you want this? Like,
So you mailed them to the president?
I didn't.
Well, she did, and it ended up in a, they didn't have to keep it as like a gift.
No, so Cole is mailing Cole's spare change,
Okay,
or like any money Cole finds on the ground, you know,
Right.
just to the U.S. Treasury.
so she wasn't, I thought she was putting them in your,
No, there are some people that came to the gallery did like put change in there, but no, the pieces were designed to be in the show to signify each year of the
oh, so
project.
she just put it in an envelope or box?
Yeah,
37
we didn't
cents.
send the actual ceramics to the treasury.
Okay, so then, okay. So presumably they probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I believe about $2,000 has been paid off in 15 years through spare change.
Oh, that's, some presidents might just put it in their pocket.
Yeah.
I won't name any names.
Yes.
I'm sure you answered this before, but how do you find your projects?
Well, that is one of the great perks of being a university professor. I think that, you know, it's fair to say that the longer I've done this, the more the work sells. And so I do have the ability to put money back into making more work from sales of the work. But also, you know, when you're an art faculty member at a research university, the work you make is your research. So a biologist might write journal articles to document the work that they're doing and putting out into the world. We make work and do the same thing. So when I have projects coming up or shows, I apply for funding from my school, and especially when you're trying to get tenure, they're really excited to give you that money. Yeah, it's a huge benefit to the job that I have. So I'm often able to do things that I couldn't do otherwise because I have the university's support. Yes.
To kind of go off of that question, was there a point in time where you were kind of like going into debt, I guess?
You're assuming I'm out of debt.
Well, yeah, I mean, if your projects now, like they're kind of going back into your work, they're paying themselves off. Was there a point in time where you were just like making, and then none of it was really paying off and you kind of had to go out of your own pocket?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and I would say, I mean, I think it's also really important to be transparent about money. I do make money from the work, maybe not quite enough to live on, but it's a really nice extra amount of money to my job. And I also have lots of friends that make like a full-time living being artists, so I do think it's possible, which I get asked a lot, like if it's a viable thing for a person to do. To answer maybe more personally though, I mean, I guess what I would say is I've been able to do bigger and more involved projects like sequentially over time. In the beginning, I mean, I was really making work to get opportunities. I think that's what we do as artists, is we make the work, and the work is always the thing that propels us to the next opportunity. So, you know, if you're a person trying to get into grad school or residencies, like you can have the best grades in the world, but if your work isn't competitive with your peers, it won't happen. And
And so I was very much, I think for a long time, making work for that purpose, to get opportunities. And I didn't, you know, like, if it cost money to apply for a show or residency or to ship work somewhere, for me, that's always been an investment in my future. So to a degree, like, I haven't kept track over the years. I've never, gone into any sort of serious financial trouble over artwork, but there have been a few times where it's been close, I would say. But it's been certainly worth it. And now, I mean, I have a very good job. I have a regular life. I have a house. I have, you know, car. You know, it's been viable for me for sure. No, that is not my car. Yes.
What kind of goals did you have, like, for your work in the coming future?
Oh, in the future? Gosh, I mean, I think it's hard to get out of a survival mindset as an artist. Like, for so long, I was just trying to make what it took to get the next thing. And at one point in time, that was to be noticed professionally. Then it was to get a job. Then it was to get tenure. Now, like, I mean, it's weird to be at a place where, like, maybe it doesn't matter as much anymore. And I guess I hope that I'm able to, do more projects like the one with the banks where I can kind of, like, do something that seems really interesting. I mean, it's a huge luxury, again, I know, but I mean, I mostly want to take time to do the work that I really am passionate about doing, rather than just cranking stuff out for galleries that want it. So, I don't have any specific, actually one goal I have, I'm trying to go on sabbatical. I've never done this before, and I'm hoping to go back to Montana, to Archie Bray in the fall of 26. So just to have time and space to make work, like, away from students and away from the normal pressures of my life. I'm not sure how that'll be because it's been so long since I've been able to do that. So mostly that's what I want, is to just kind of be able to make work without any real obligations for a little while. Yeah.
You had this, like, idyllic trajectory through grad school where, apart from the flood and hanging out in the Nards for a while, which I don't know if the ceramics department ever.
We did. You know about this.
Yeah. Well, like, you reached this point at the end of grad school in 2010. You showed us you had arrived at this core formula for what sets you on a trajectory for making work even now. I'm not going to say your work is formulaic, but we could go pretty quickly through a list of, like, the things you think about as you make the work, you know, and it's set you, I mean, we're 15 years past 2010, and you're still employing this list of things to make the work, and I wonder, how do you, interact with a grad student that comes and is just like, I just want to throw clay at a wall for 3 years and see what happens, and I'm thinking about this for our students too. How do we get them to continue exploring and not think that finding their personal style is the end all, that like it ends at that point?
That's a really good question. One thing I would say too is, like, my slide talk here is just like any, person's social media feed. Like, I'm painting you an ideal picture, but there are many times where it was not ideal. So, I mean, one thing I'll say is that I don't think there's ever an end, right? Like, I think there was a time where I thought my MFA show would be this end, and often the grads I work with are focused on that goal. And as soon as you put that show up, you realize that it's just another show, and now there's a next thing, and who knows what that is, right? So this is a trajectory that I think never stops. I think, like any creative process, like, you have periods of, like, big innovation, and then periods of, like, slower, like, that are almost, they could be like stasis. They could be, maybe you're just making the same things. And everybody's different, like ceramics has its own tropes and norms, super different from painting, super different from other fields. So I think I'm informed by all of those things, and was informed by those things in grad school. And grad grads and undergrads now are totally different than they were in 2010. Like, we knew nothing of this world. We thought we had it bad. Turns out, you know, I don't, you know, I think about that a lot. Like, what are the different pressures facing people now compared to how it was when I was in school, and how do I don't know, help people have the freedoms that I had? Because more and more I feel just like so lucky to have been able to not have some of the burdens that are present for people right now. And I think that means like understanding that everybody's different, understanding that you have the mindset of like work yourself, you know, to the bone to make the absolute best thing you possibly can. It's maybe not super applicable in this moment. Yeah, trying to like reevaluate all of that stuff, I think, is what I have to do as a faculty. But yeah, it's never as neat and orderly as it looks in a curated talk. I did have a baby my first year of grad school. I didn't talk about that. My wife was in the same grad program with me, so we were in the same program with a child. So anybody that's been to grad school in the room, like, can you imagine? Insane. Everybody thought, you know, they were either excited about it or judged us heavily for it, or didn't want to be around us, you know. And yeah, there was a massive flood. The studio got destroyed. I mean, it was a lot of chaos in retrospect, and I think that's why my work is as chaotic as it is. Other questions? Okay. Well, I hope I'll see some of you at the gallery tomorrow, and we're going to do a demo.
Starting at
Starting
1-ish.
soon.
I do have more questions, but I'm gonna save them for the workshop. Yeah, thank you all. And if you're curious to learn more, please come to the ceramic studio. There's no sign up needed. You can just pop in and stay for as long as you like. Andy will be demoing until around 3.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.